You're listening to the Jiu Jitsu Lou podcast, and I'm Lou Temlett. I'm guessing you're having a good day because either you've been on the mats, considering getting on the mats, or maybe your partner really is a red Power Ranger. I'm so happy you're here listening or watching this episode. Please don't tap out before the end. When you can't sing or dance and you still want to have some fun, start training Jiu-Jitsu. I'd like to welcome Dan Lester to my podcast. Hi Dan, how are you?
Oh, it's fantastic. I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing really well. So just to clear up any confusion, your partner really is a Red Power Ranger in the form of Jade Barker.
Yeah, she definitely is. She's an absolute superstar. She's my everything. She my main training partner, everything. She's just fantastic. And yeah, she is a superstar Red Power Ranger.
Thank you for reconfirming what we already have known and kind of observe. But today's show is about you, Dan. So thank you very much for joining me. We are going to be talking about your jiu-jitsu journey, some of the kind of mental health and kind of other issues that you have worked through over the years, and some of your charity work that you're kind of continuing to do on an ongoing basis. So let's start with your jiu-jitsu journey, when you started, why you started, and where it's kind of taken you to.
Okay, no problem. So with jiu-jitsu, I started initially with I say MMA, but it's more MMA based fitness. So essentially kind of like boxer size classes. This was 2014, and I remember it because do you remember the ice bucket challenge?
Yes, I do. There was no TikTok back in those days, but it was all over Facebook, I remember.
Exactly that. So the gym I was at the time, the gym got nominated to do it, and I was on a trial, my 3-class trial, when that was happening. So that's how I remember when I started, because normally it's it was some point X amount of years ago, but that was my reference point. So yeah, I was doing the fitness classes for a little while, and then one day I got there late for one of the classes, and the next session was MMA. So I thought, I'll get the kit, I'll give it a go. And it was hilarious. It was just have you seen Impractical Jokers? It's that sort of thing. It was like someone who just doesn't look like they know what they're doing, nothing's instinctive, all these sort of things. It was so funny. I was just like, what have I just been in? It was so funny. And then I thought, do you know what? I'll give it another go. And I kept doing it. I really enjoyed it. And obviously no one's trying to hurt you, no one's trying to do anything. It's just you get a bit panicky and a bit scared of a room full of MMA fighters, that kind of thing. But no, it's all fine. And as time went on, I was just enjoyed it. I found myself enjoying more of the grappling. I learned a few submissions. I learned a few of them for any video games, believe it or not. The first submission I ever hit in the gym was a straight ankle lock because I saw Brock Lesnar do it on a WWE game. And I just thought, you just grab the ankle and you lean back and they tap. And that's what happened. And I was like, this can't be like that. And fast forward the best part of 10 years and I still do the same thing.
Okay, giving away your trade secrets, Dan. That sounds, it's kind of cool. I mentioned on Jason Mueller's podcast, the White Basement Pod, actually, about SSX Tricky being my computer game of the kind of 90s, and feeling like I would be the best snowboarder in the world because I could play this game and kind of, hit all the extra points or whatever. The fact is, I've never been on a snowboard. I'm not planning to unless something incredible happens over the next couple of years. So I kind of appreciate maybe that gives me hope, actually. Maybe I can pull off all those tricks. So tell me a bit more about the other moves and the other things that you learned early on in terms of submissions that weren't on a computer game.
Well, believe it or not, I learned arm bars and triangles from an actual fighter who taught me proper jiu-jitsu and not just, crew things you see on games from 2006. But what this was, I really appreciate Cameron Kehoe. I haven't seen him in years, but what would happen was before class, he used to spend time with me in the cage doing arm bars and triangles from guard. Nice and simple, rinse and repeat, get it right, get it right, get it right. And I just drilled and drilled and drilled. And it became one of the few things. I went to a Greg Jackson seminar years ago, and he said about your teddy bear, which was essentially your thing you cling on to when you don't know anything else or you're in a situation where you're not familiar with. And
Yeah.
arm bars and triangles were just my thing from white to blue belt, I want to say, purely on that, because rinse and repeat, and it was just one of those things. So I was a
Nice.
real fanatic on triangles for a long time. I still am, to be honest, but leg locks have really taken my priority over the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years now.
That's so good. I love the fact that you have a repertoire of submissions now. I'm still working on my submission game, but finding some of the chokes and kind of shoulder submissions, the kind of the top of the body submission, more my thing. Not the arm bars. I don't know what to do with the flailing arms and legs, but I can control the body, so that's my thing.
No, definitely. As to say, like I find with arm bars specifically, it's almost a timing thing and a speed thing to most extent, but there are
Mm,
ways of climbing the body, like you say, like diamond guards and sort of high guards, it's called posture controls. And again,
yeah,
this is something I always realise, explaining jiu-jitsu verbally is quite a tricky one, but like demoing, say, here's someone here, this is what happens, this is how we do it, but explaining the steps. But yeah, as I say, it's more just finding a setup that works for your style. So like
yeah,
my armbar setup I use regularly isn't one I've been taught directly. It's basic a flower sweep setup. So
yeah,
the grips are different to what you do for an orthodox armbar. But I found the angle works nicer, the speed of it's quicker, all these different things. But again, that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. I found is very much like you learn. Was it is it Picasso? I think it's like you learn the moves as a beginner, so you learn to break them as an artist. So you learn how to like
oh,
understand the principles to then apply them in your own way.
nice. I like that. Now, I'm not going to ask you about your white belt years because I've now progressed to being a blue belt. Tell me about how you kind of experienced your blue belt years because you're now a purple belt and probably well on your way to something more. But tell me about your blue belt time.
Blue belt was a funny one. So white belt was scared, frightened, and didn't really know what was going on. And blue belt was a touch of confidence, which came into like I don't want to say arrogance, but kind of like I know something, so I think I know a lot, and I just ended up I don't know, mainly the MMA environment. I felt you're just trying to
Yeah,
on the social media, on like competitions and things like that, you think you're more experienced than you are. You think because what's happened is you've got a taste of I'm getting success. I'm submitting lower belts.
yeah,
I've got a repertoire of moves now. I've got some kind of. I remember seeing Jiu-Jitsu do a video on this. Like the blue belt's like the buffet belt. You get a taste of this. You try a bit of that guard, a bit of this, and then start the passing, and you think you've mastered all those positions. And I really had that sort of I don't know naivety. I'm going to say, but
yeah,
as time went on, I just learned to slow things down. And I really started
yeah,
to get into like philosophy and psychology. And what happened with that was it gave me different perspectives on things and
yeah,
understanding more about the why as opposed to the whats. So instead of it being like, oh, I can do these techniques on a non-resisting opponent, but why isn't it working on resisting opponents? How did the
yeah.
higher belt stop it? Things like that. And it really helped me branch out and expand, really. So the long answer to the short question was blue belt was fun, but I had too much fun at the start. I needed to just calm down a bit.
I like the fact that you mentioned about slowing the whole thing down. As I've noticed in kind of training and rolling and sparring with different kind of belts, the kind of higher the belt, the slower and more vindictive some of the submissions can be, and kind of the speed slows down, which actually for me has been really marked in the difference between a white belt that goes incredibly fast, their heart rate's pumping, and they're wanting to finish as soon as possible so that they're not completely gassed out by the end of the 5 or 6 minutes of sparring rounds.
No, definitely. The white belt death matches are the best rounds because I really feel that there's very much like that tests your jiu-jitsu in like a very pure sense of someone
Yeah,
untrained with full intentions to try and do anything. If you can control them and submit them if you need to, it's
yeah,
very much like I can use my game to apply on someone who really doesn't have like trained reactions. That's the hardest part. Is
yeah,
like you roll with people who don't play jiu-jitsu with you,
yeah,
they don't play the game. They don't base the normal way. They don't react the standard way. And it's like, how do I process this? It's
yeah.
just such an interesting concept.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I was struggling with some strength of a white belt the other day, and actually, you can still kind of overcome that challenge if you use the knowledge of jiu-jitsu and that kind of philosophy behind what it's all about rather than a speed or a frustration. I think probably in my white belt days, I was left in a certain position, no, thinking, how the heck do I get out of this place? But I feel like slowly and very, very slowly and gently, I'm kind of coming out of that confusion stage.
It's nice. It's quite
How
refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and kind of feels like I am getting somewhere. I don't necessarily feel like there's lots of opportunities for me. I'm still having to work for specific positions. But tell me a bit about your purple belt journey and how that has been for you, especially in competition.
Ooh. Now, purple belt's a really interesting one. So, on and off the mat, it's been a real challenge, to be honest. So, when it comes to on the mat, the standards are really interesting. It's such a diverse range. So, with the purple belt, I always say it's quite crude. Let me say this as politely as I can. With purple belt, you get very good blue belts who are at purple belt level, or you get really bad black belts at purple belt level, essentially, where it's like that spectrum
Yeah,
of we're advanced enough to almost be black belts, but we're also just out of purple belt, out of blue belt, sorry. So it's like a
yeah,
weird spectrum. So you go against people who could be like world level, and some
yeah,
people who are just like, they're just getting by, like myself included in that, where it's much like you're doing the right things, you're progressing steadily, but some people are just leaps and bounds at purple belt. It's such a big spectrum. But regards to my journey, so I got my purple belt in 2020, so just after the first or second lockdowns of December, so whatever time frame that was,
yeah,
when the gyms reopened. And throughout my lockdown time, I spent a lot of time studying instructionals. I was watching Owen O'Flanagan's Leg Locks for Dummies, and that was my first introduction to proper leg lock entries and systems and all sorts. And I thought that was a great name, and I was absolutely perfect. Um, and then throughout rolling and trying different things, I just had more fun, really. I just enjoyed
yeah,
things. I was every stereotypical jiu-jitsu player there's ever been. I was inverting for no reason, skipping warm-ups, using lapels for no reason, all sorts of things. It was good fun.
You do
Um,
you do very much sound like a purple belt.
oh, exactly. You can catch me at a warm-up, I dare you. I don't want to be there. I'm in the car park still, saying I'm running late.
Go out and check in the car parks, people. Go and check in the car parks.
That's it, something like that. But no, I'm better at that than that. Jay keeps me nice and disciplined. I show up on time. I do the warm-ups, and I'm best behaviour now. I'm not skiving anymore. We're all good. But yeah, regards of competitions, the level has been really interesting, and it's quite surreal with competitions. So when you go up belt levels, when you first start the white belt, you go to competitions. I remember seeing like brown belts and purple belts, and think, wow, they're high level belts. Wow, and you see them like compete, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah,
I'll never get to that level. And you start competing, and when you submit people in competition, it's like I just submit a purple belt. Like as much as it's like I am a purple belt, it's very much like I remember when I was a scared white belt and I couldn't get near a purple belt, and
yeah,
now we're doing it. It's just quite cool. It's quite surreal. And like when it comes to the sub
yeah.
only shows, so I had my first one. Oh, when was that? That was Intergrapple. That was Shane Curtis's show. That was really good against Matt Curtis, who isn't his brother. I don't think. I think he's just got the same surname. Over in Nottingham. That was quite a good one. And then I went Grapple Wars in Wales, all sorts. I've been all over the UK with these things. I love them.
Wow. I like the fact that you also travel and that people do kind of expand their experience traveling around the UK. I've recently kind of hot footed up to Sheffield and Nottingham, just, meeting previous guests that have been on the show and just experiencing some of the classes and open mats and just the variation of skill level and kind of experience. And it's a really great thing to kind of be part of. And you mentioned community as well. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a really big thing. Tell me about how the community has impacted your kind of positive mental health and been as a support for you.
So this is going to be a bit of a, I don't know, is it a heavier topic? I don't really know. But basically, when I was diagnosed with bipolar, before I had the episode, so I had a manic episode. So people don't know what mania, psychotic episodes are. It's basically like you just go gradually more like delusional. You talk, you don't stop talking, all this other different stages and stuff. impulse buying things, all sorts of different stages.
Yeah.
And when I had that, it was terrifying a lot. It was it changed my world. And afterwards, I was a shell of who I was. But one of the first things I did, this was like a couple of weeks after, maybe I went back to the gym.
Yeah.
And with that, I didn't roll. I think I did one round maybe. I came back, cried my eyes out, but everyone there was just so supportive. They were just like, we're here for you, mate. We're here for you. We're going to get you through this and everything like that. And I'll never forget that. That was like Kraken MMA, that was BST, Northampton. Those guys really stood by me, and Adam Hale, my strength and conditioning coach, and all these different people, my family obviously, they really stood by me. So regardless of the community and the fight sports, what really surprised me and what I really struggled with at the time was you have, say, like work friends, for example, like you go to work, you have your colleagues, you're like, oh, we'd hang out at work, we go for lunch together maybe, but how many would you see outside of work?
Yeah.
So I didn't know how many people at training were actually like friends or just training friends. But when push came to shove, loads of people really stepped up and really checked in on me, made sure I was all right, asking where I've been, make sure I've come back all right, things like that. So regards to community, they're all really supportive. And when it's come to my newest venture of these charity seminars and open mats, which we'll get onto whenever the conversation flows that way, but people have been really supportive of that, wanting to get involved. And regards to the community, I swear by it. And yeah, I feel like, you get the pettiness here and there. You get the he said, she said here and there of, this gym's better than that and all the rest of it. But that's nothing. That's mine. That's only certain areas. Most people are welcoming, they're wonderful, they're supportive. And where I'm at now, Gym 01 is just fantastic. Everyone's so loving, so supportive, so encouraging. And yeah, it's a really healthy environment. So now I'm really grateful for my journey and everyone who's been supportive through it.
That's amazing. And I hear so many amazing stories about Gym 01 from my guests that have been on the show. If anyone is in the Portsmouth area, go and check out Gym 01 with Colin Howes. I will have to have him back on the show very soon. But Dan, thank you for sharing your bipolar condition and some of the symptoms that you experienced. It must have really put you in a kind of a mind spin, a place of uncertainty. And it really sounds like everyone around you was there for you when you really needed them.
No, definitely. As to say, regards of how much detail to go into, I'm sort of working out as I'm going along, but we'll see what comes out and the nature of me and my waffling. But regards of the symptoms and everything else, it was quite an interesting sort of build up essentially. So what happened was when I had my first episode, I was working like normal, like 9 to 5, 8:30, 5:30, something like that hours. I was going straight from that to the gym from like 6 till about 8ish, then coming back and then studying jiu-jitsu or doing whatever else till about 1, 2 in the morning, waking up at 6, doing it again Monday to Friday, and then weekends just trying to recover, but sleep was non-existent. And the various other factors and things like that, but it's more just, it was just constant burnout. It was just restlessness. I developed this like tick almost. It was a really strange time. And then the ideas, the journaling, and I tell you what really, I remember the start of all of it was I was doing a CBT. This isn't to discourage you from doing CBT. It's fantastic. It really changes everything. But the process of working backwards from certain reactions and what's caused what makes you feel a certain way attached to certain areas, I try to just, my words will fix my mental health, which is not a good start to a conversation because you don't fix it, you work on it, and it's understanding that. But I had this whole notes page, I had constant things of working back things, and then it was just my business plans. I have to smile and talk about it because otherwise you don't really understand it yourself. You're just like, what was that? Because in the time it was so raw and so like overwhelming. But no, it was constant planning, trying to be the best at everything, trying to be good enough, trying to be all these different concepts. But it was just, everything just came to a point really.
Thank you for sharing. And I think, when we reflect on past experiences, we do find that there are triggers and moments that are kind of pivotal in maybe starting or creating a flow of life, and then the support that kind of comes afterwards. So I really do thank you for sharing that. I think it's kind of important to have self-awareness, but not to the point where you're giving yourself a hard time necessarily and kind of achieving or overachieving. There was a recent conversation that I heard with Heston Blumenthal recently, where he talks about his bipolar and his ADHD and kind of working 120 hours a week and maybe only getting like 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night. And it sounds very much like something that was the experience for you as well. And just holding space for that experience and anyone that might be going through something similar. There are places to kind of go out and get some help, or at least have people around you aware of behaviour change, because I think that's the key. On the jiu-jitsu mats, we are very exposed. We, our kind of teammates are aware about how we might be feeling sometimes. Whether they say anything in the moment, I think there's kind of some awareness. So do keep an eye out for your teammates, check in on them, because like you were saying, Dan, those are the people that generally show up, not necessarily the people you work with day in and day out. It's the ones that see you in that vulnerable position on the training mats.
No, 100%. And it's just one of those things to really appreciate when people have rest days. They don't always show up, but people haven't been there for a while. It's always nice to check in, make sure they're doing okay. I understand life gets on top of people and things, it's just training takes a backseat sometimes. But again, it's just checking in on your friends, really. That's the biggest thing. And that's why I'm very grateful for people who've checked in on me when I've needed that support. And I try and pay it forward where I can in that same sort of aspect.
Amazing. This is the Jiu-Jitsu Lou podcast with me, Lou Temlett, coming to you from the UK. Go and check out the latest video clips over on jiu.jitsu.lu on Instagram. And as you're listening or watching on your favourite podcast platform, I'd really appreciate you dropping the show a rating and a review. Today, I'm having a conversation with Dan Lester. Dan, thank you for sharing all of that. Now, I'd like to move on and ask you more about your charity work and the kind of open mats. And then we'll get on to talking about your competition and kind of super fight regime and weight cutting, which I've seen some interesting things on your socials recently.
Perfect. So we'll start with the charity work. We keep things in the order you said it as best I can remember. We'll see how I get on with that.
We can mix it up, Dan. It's quite flexible.
So we'll just throw topics here and there and make it just a little juggle. Here we go. So with the charity work, so where it really started was back in 2014, I lost my brother. And the year after that, 2015, so I started the same year I lost him. I was training in the summer, lost him in November sort of time. So with that, I had this real crossroads of, do I go self-destructive and just panic and implode with everything that's happening, or do I go constructive and just train? It's a basic escapism, to be honest, but basically just train, eat right, just be the best I can at anything athletic or something, just to burn out the energy, deal with the grief, all that good stuff, just to make sure I'm living and breathing and just staying active and just not sitting around. And with that, the first real lot of charity stuff I did was the Spartan races. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tough Mudders and things like that, but Spartan races are the Reebok version with burpees instead of punishment. So basically, it's just a really nasty obstacle course race. Essentially, it was just a bit of fun.
Just not really the electrocution though. I always kind of worried about the Tough Mudder.
Yeah, you get shocked by those because they get you. They really do. But yeah, I did what's called the Spartan Trifecta. That was 3 different distances, all within a calendar year. I did them all in a month. And each distance, you get the medal and a third of a medal. So when you do all 3 different distances, you make a big trifecta medal, which is pretty cool. That was 2015. And then throughout the years, I was doing a number of these obstacle course races for different causes, like Great Ormond Street and Keach, the hospice that looked after my brother, different things like that. When I was at BST, we unfortunately lost a few of our friends just who, yeah, they're not here anymore due to taking their own lives, unfortunately. Sorry for any triggers, I don't really know how to word that.
That's
But we
fine.
did I did a 24-hour open mat for Calm. That was I really enjoyed that, to be honest. It was a tougher challenge,
Yeah.
but the community really stepped up and the gym really stepped up and they really helped us all make it run nicely and raised quite a lot. I can't remember the exact figure. This must have been like 2017 now.
Yeah.
And then onwards from there has been, so part of my idea when I was manic, I've sort of jumping timelines a little bit, was about doing these charity events. Basically, so with charity open mats, the general structure with that was going to be the gym chooses the cause, so they make it personal to whoever wants to run it, and then we do it 12 till 4 on a Saturday, get people over, raise money, fivers in, no politics, just training. And we
Yeah.
did about, I think, 4 or 5 of them in the end. I think it's just quite hard to logistically arrange them and get the numbers and all things like that.
Yeah.
And that I was really proud of those. Thank you to everyone who helped me support those, who hosted the gyms, people who came along. It came out really well. I was really happy with those. But basically, moving forward from there, I wanted to expand on that idea and do more of those. But the issue I found was 4 hours is a long open mat. And
Yeah.
people drift in and out, the numbers sort of dwindle. And if you're paying £5, £10 to support the cause and do some training, if you go there in a period where people are dipping off or whatever else,
Yeah.
it's quite hard to keep it sustainable. And because I've done coaching on and off for a while, I really like the idea of doing a seminar, but where I struggle is I haven't had the big titles. I'm not a black belt, ADCC, Mundial champion, all the rest of it. But I've
Yeah.
got 9, 10 years of training, understanding, studying, instructional seminars, all these
Yeah.
different avenues of information and techniques I've used in competition and all sorts. So I feel there's value to be had there. So my idea initially is to do a similar model. So just to summarise, it's 12 till 2 on a Saturday would be this leg lock seminar I do, and then 2 to 4 be an open mat following that. So you get a 2 hour open mat if you want to just do
Oh,
that. A
nice.
donation-based seminar for people who want to just come along, whether it's just drop whatever change you got in the car in the pot, whether you want to do some more for the cause, things like that, just to encourage
Yeah.
people just to get involved and just
Yeah.
just enjoy it really, and all for mine. So with mine specifically, I chose with them. I feel they support a lot of people in regards to mental health. I was really on a bit of a dilemma as to whether or not to do it for Bipolar UK or different causes, but I felt mine covered a broader spectrum, and again, that
Yeah.
would facilitate a lot of people's needs instead of a smaller margin. Whereas I feel like I could still benefit from the mental health support, whereas people wouldn't necessarily benefit from bipolar support if they don't have bipolar, if you see what I mean. So I thought it would cover
Yeah.
more things like
Yeah.
that. And yeah, so that's the plan for 2025, because doing it this side of Christmas might be a bit tough. So I
Yeah.
thought, just build it up and then go from there, really. So yeah,
Oh,
that's
that sounds fantastic. A really nice combination of seminar and open mat. And I just want to also hold space for your knowledge and experience in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, because getting to purple belt is kind of a milestone in itself. But the way that it sounds like you've learnt and kind of perfected some of the things, actually there's a lot of value in that, and I just want to give a bit of a nod to all of that you have value and experience that actually probably more people than you realize want to hear about and experience in person. So if you've got some dates coming up for 2025 and they happen to be in the Portsmouth area, I may well be heading in the car with my gi packed in the back.
that's fantastic. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate you making a point of that. I really do.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the charity work sort of summarised.
That's
Regards of
good.
competitions next and super fights preparation, or is it weight cutting next? I've lost track of the order.
Well, okay, I need you to explain why you are led on the floor, wrapped in blankets and towels and all things fluffy. Look like you're having a nap, but actually it's a weight cutting strategy. Tell me about that.
TV was down, so I need to do something to entertain myself. So I had a match on Reap Invitational. I went on there. It was actually Mother's Day, but they had it on quite a strange day. So they had a pullout on the day. So this would have been about 10 a.m. I saw the message on the Instagram story just saying like, "Oh, we need a 76 kg purple belt." And I
Yeah.
was like, "I know." And this is after an all-nighter watching the UFC or something. So I was knackered, but I was like, "Yeah, go on then. I'll drop a message, see what happens." And they was like, "Yeah, if you can make it in time," because they're in Middlesbrough. And I
Yeah.
was Bedford at the time, so that was at least 3.5, 4 hours. So I was like, I'll get there about half an hour before the match starts. So yeah, I should be alright. I'll head over now. Did the match, ended up getting caught with a heel hook after like a couple of minutes against a seasoned competitor. And I felt not an injustice of I didn't feel myself and didn't prepare. It was all like a last minute thing. It was like,
Yeah.
what is there to lose kind of thing. But also like I could have done better than that. I didn't feel switched on, didn't feel myself. And
Yeah.
thankfully, because I stepped in and the guys really appreciated it, they invite me back for the next one. So this was on the 10th, just gone. And with that, I had to make 77 and I walk around about 81 ish, around
Okay.
about. I've cut down to 70. I think I was 79 before I got in the bath. And regards to the weight cutting, which I will disclose is not safe unless you're doing it with professionals, and don't
Yeah.
do it because I told you to do it, because I don't, want anyone losing too much weight on my head, be it. So what it was a 20-minute hot bath, as hot as I could take essentially, but
Yeah.
thankfully, as Jade pointed out, it's not as hot as it should be, but we'll make it work. And yeah, she was the organizer of the professional at hand to make sure everything was done properly, and
Yeah.
I wasn't being, as the Ports people call, a squinny, which is basically like a little crybaby about it. So I
Okay.
didn't sulk about how hot it was, and when I was sweating, I didn't make a big fuss. So I got little brownie points for being so brave. I should have got a little sticker, you'd have thought,
Okay.
but
Good. That sounds like red Power Ranger attitude to me.
that's it. It'll be the green one. Maybe I'll find a different colour and we can team up. There we are.
Love it. So
But
that
that
was
isn't my story.
okay.
Interrupt.
Good. I love seeing unusual things on people's kind of Instagram stories or posts that make you kind of question not necessarily your own reality, but what kind of make you intrigued and want to find out a bit more. So thank you for explaining that one. And as Dan says, don't go weight cutting without a professional nutritionist or someone else supporting you in that journey. So tell me a bit more about some of the other super fights that you've been involved with.
So that last minute one I just said about on Reap, that wasn't my shortest notice match. I have had one on 10 seconds notice before. That was good fun. This is my
No
favourite.
way.
My favourite
Cool.
stories. I love. So I had a show, Grapple Wars, in Llandudno. I always say it wrong, so apologies anyone from there. I always butcher that. I had a match against someone who pulled out the day before. I won that one, and I had a match against the Pro MMA guy, Jamil Nausey. Really good. He caught me with an armbar. All good. In the following April, I went to Grapple House Invitationals, and there was an advanced tournament I joined into, so that I had noticed that wasn't a problem. But there was a pullout. Jamil didn't show up for his match, so I was like, okay, I'll do it. Just bought a cup of tea, and I said, okay, I've got my kit, I'll do it. His opponent just didn't show up, so I was like, I'll just jump in. And then I put the tea down, took my kit off because I had my kit underneath my tracksuit I had on, stepped on the mat, submitted the guy within, I think it was 4 minutes or something. They gave me a rash guard set, and they said to me, your tea's free. So I was like, oh, fantastic, what a day.
And it was still hot waiting 4 minutes later.
Yeah, it was alright.
Oh my goodness.
That was a fun one. That was Grapple House. They're a really good show up in Middleton. They're a charity based one, and they've had a variety of people on there, different advanced tournaments. They give quite cool weapons as prizes for like the advanced tournaments and things like that. Like
I'm sorry, you said
um,
cool weapons.
yeah, like daggers and things like that, like novelty ones. Not like obviously don't use them. They're just decoration.
Okay,
Things like that.
okay.
So yeah, it's all like that kind of thing. It's a bit different. Like Reap, for example, they gave masks as a prize at the last one. It's just a bit of a mix opposed to the medals you
Nice.
get at competitions. Um, yeah, Grapple Wars. What was that one? That was the one I did. No, the one I won. That was 31 seconds via armbar.
Oh my
And
goodness.
what was cool with that one, which was quite a big milestone for me. So when I was having my episode, right at the start of it, my manic episode, sorry, I had a competition already signed up for. My brother took me because I thought I'm in my head, I'm like delusionally confident and like over the moon, elated, all these like manic symptoms, but all
Yeah.
positive in my world. And I did that Grapple Industries, and I submitted a guy with a toe hold, and it turned out to be the same guy I had a match in Grapple Wars. And one thing I haven't said yet about my manic episode was like the embarrassing side of things, where you're sending messages to people, you're talking nonsense, all sorts of things. And he's one
Yeah.
of the people I sent messages to, so it was quite a gut wrenching moment of I'm having to face the. I always say it like a drunk text, almost the sort of feeling of like,
Yeah.
what did I say, what did I do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So to face that, and he was respectful, he was lovely. So all my opponents are. Um, I had a match on Victory Invitational. That was fun. So with that one, I had a Theon Davis and Gabriel Souza seminar in Birmingham in the afternoon, and Victory Invitational was in Liverpool in the evening. So if this isn't stressful enough, I don't. It's one of those things. It just sounds
I'm
ridiculous
just
because it
I'm
was.
just about keeping up with you, Dan.
Sorry. So I'm going when I start talking about things, I remember other things. So I just go on these little
It's
tangents.
so cool. It's so cool.
But yeah, so I did the seminar in the afternoon at the Arnold Expo, which was really cool. Like headquarters passing, bits and bobs. I thought, yeah, that's really cool. It's a gi seminar. And then I got my friends who drove me up there, they gave me a lift to the train station. So I went from Birmingham New Street, I think, to Liverpool Lime. And
Yeah.
then my no-gi stuff, I got to the venue. They're like, I didn't think you were going to show up. I was like, yeah, said I would be. And then went upstairs to the changing rooms. And then, yeah, no corner, no nothing. It was in a cage in a nightclub. It was quite cool. Against the guy who I submitted a grapple house, the one I submitted when I got a cup of tea for free, that one. It was
Yeah.
him, I was against. And it was a real back and forth, but I'll send you it afterwards. But I went for two Imanari rolls, and neither of them connected, and they looked awful. I was like a Beyblade
Oh
trying to run
no.
around. It was hilarious. I still won the match. I got a decision from more sub attempts and being more aggressive, but it was just one of those things. It was just like, you know, those highlight reels you see, like someone does something cool, you're like, I could
Yeah.
do one of that. And I
Yeah.
was like, no, I should have just kept it fundamental, kept it basic, kept it
Love it.
straightforward, but no. But
That-
highlight reel,
that-
highlight reel,
That's,
highlight reel.
that's where all the gaming kind of came back in, and all the fancy moves and things.
Yeah,
Keep it
press the wrong button.
simple. Exactly. Yeah, when it's stuck. Anyway, Dan, thank you for sharing all of that. I have kept up. I hope you, as listeners or people watching this, have kept up. I think what you're doing, Dan, is incredible, and what you've achieved is incredible. I certainly, listening from my perspective, being able to kind of jump from one thing to another is an absolute superpower, but also kind of holding space and being mindful for your mental health and well-being. And it sounds like what you're doing now to really support others is, in the form of seminars and charity open mats and all of those amazing things. So if you're in any area, or even you want to pack your kit in your bag and drive down to where Dan's hosting any of these events, get yourself down there. Dan, you've got all of these coming up in 2025, but what is next for you, probably on top of all those things, coming up?
So I'd say the next thing is Grappling Industries on the 1st of February, and then Impact Invitational on the 8th. I'm waiting for a matchup. Those are the two next things. And then, yeah, we're just getting some dates hopefully confirmed for January. Nothing booked in the calendar yet, but keep an eye on socials for the time being.
Amazing. And Dan, how can people follow your journey and see all of these very impressive highlight reels that are kind of coming out of your socials?
So my Instagram is Dan_Lester_. Not Lester like the cheese, Lester.
Lovely. Love that. No one can spell Leicester from the location anyway. I really struggle with the E's and the I's after the C's. I'm not sure whether anyone else suffers from that problem as well. Dan, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate everything that you shared, and I will even more so be following your journey and everything else that's coming up for you.
Thank you for your time. Really appreciate you having me on.
It's great stuff. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for telling your friends about this show. And as soon as this episode ends, I'd really appreciate you dropping the show a rating and a review. Thanks again for listening. Catch you on the next episode of the Jiu Jitsu podcast.